Welcome to today's conversation for Xplore CXO Podcast. I am Jagriti and I'm really excited to have a very special guest with us today, and it's Mr. Deepak Padmanabha, Director of Product Management Industry Cloud SAP, a thought leader, mentor and an AI strategy fellow. Mr. Deepak brings in years of experience of product management leadership at SAP Labs India. With over 20 years in the enterprise technology, his journey and insights into product management and digital transformation are truly inspiring. Sir, thank you so much for joining with us today.
Thank you for having me, Jagrati. Beautiful campus, beautiful people.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So, starting off, I would like to ask few lighter questions before getting into the technical context. So, I'll start with the first one. Early in your career, was there any light bulb moment that made you realize that product leadership was the path for you?
I am an accidental PM, and in all fairness and trueness. So, I was handling people for cloud development.
Okay.
I was handling a pretty big team of about 50 odd people from Bangalore for the area of professional services. And that is when we had to spin off a new completely cloud-based product. It was something new. We did not have anybody to run the show, and I put my hand up because the overall team was mine. So, and they needed somebody very close to them rather than our CPO was based out of Germany. So I said, okay, I can do it. I can, kind of liaise between, and that's how I started. And initial days, I kind of started to like it. And back then, my boss, who was already a product leader, so I went and challenged him that I think I want to be here. And that took us on a journey where over the next 6 months, we were doing a few things on the product. We had to even showcase to a customer, and my boss said, you go and speak in front of the customer. Let me really see whether you've got it in you to be a PM. Right, you have to speak the customer language, and so it was my first ever time. I still remember kind of going to a customer's, their conference room, kind of shivering because I know my part, but really when you are representing SAP, you also have to know broader things, and that's how I started my journey, right? And that is where at least my boss back then said, "Okay, you seem to have it in you. Let's kind of, and that's when he little bit honed me onto that overall product mindset ideology. I think I was doing that both dual product and people for quite some time afterwards, close to 3 years. But then I realized I really wanted to get into the depths of ERP, not just industry. And that is when I said I put my entire people management a little bit at a halt, and then picked up core PM, and I think from then on I've not looked back. So it's been brilliant, it's been wonderful, and it's also been extremely fulfilling for the very fact that on one side you bring value to the customer, on the other side I've also had the pleasure of mentoring a lot of aspiring PMs in SAP as well as even outside of SAP. That's my journey so far.
Yeah, wonderful, sir. So like, how do you explain SAP maybe to someone who doesn't know about ERP or related tech, and maybe to someone in your family or maybe your child, like how do you define SAP to them?
Yeah, so in a very generic sense, SAP is known for their ERP, right, which is your enterprise resource planning. This is basically bringing an entire sort of an end-to-end view of any process on the system. And you have a statement of record of this entire process, how it flows within the system, right? So it is very much like you have multiple, let's say, financial transactions to make, one after the other. Like today, if you make an UPI transaction, you can see it in your transaction list. Something similar for a process footprint for a business to run. And you also have to look at it that these businesses are different verticals. There could be a vertical of manufacturing, there is a vertical of finance, There is a vertical of stockpiling where they are trying to get in the pieces, right? There is a separate vertical of what happens on a shop floor. So this is the integrated view of these verticals, where you also have a statement of record. That, I would say, is in a nutshell what ERP is all about, and that is how SAP is what it is today, in a very rudimentary layman terms.
That's an amazing way to think about what SAP is doing, sir. And I always wonder like how innovative products create impact and the way businesses are built and run. And therefore, can you share some stories with us like how you saw businesses using SAP products in a really creative way that is solving a tough problem, and any examples that comes to your mind?
Oh, that's a nice one. So something which immediately kind of comes to my mind, you can look at it from the time of COVID. So which is, the time when I fundamentally work for automotive industry, and we never had any solutions at that particular point of time where you could address kind of this work from home situation, right? Even in automotive sector, you have multiple broad personas. You have an OEM who manufacture, you have a dealership, right? You have suppliers who provide to the. So really, there was nothing which was made available, and at that particular point of time, I remember that we got some requests, which was more from an OEM end, that for building dashboards where they can track things, not being at the dealership or not being at the OEM, but kind of a centralized system, right? And this was quite, at that particular point of time, it was a challenge. I mean, equally even for SAP to develop or deliver something. But when we kind of came out of it, when you look at it holistically, what this actually brought was a separate tracking. It was more or less a digital twin of an automobile. That's what you can call what we had finally ended up giving, and how well it seamlessly is now part of the life cycle of your dealers and suppliers, right? So on one side, for the suppliers, they know how exactly they have to have the flow of say raw materials, and on the other side, it's more from the dealers as to how much they are selling, or what is the after sales process, whether it is service management, warranty management, insurance, and things like that, third party. So there was this integration of those third parties as well to the solutions that we gave. This was done by the dealers themselves, right? Before we actually kind of had some sort of a standard towards it. And that was on one side, you certainly can call it innovation. But more importantly, the value that it got at a time of crisis, that was really brilliant. Because you could, sitting where you are, I mean, even the dealers were at home, there was no shops open, right? And at least you got to know certain most vital aspects of your vehicle, saying, okay, it's at least not fit for use or something on those lines. So that was quite, I would say, phenomenal in the sense that whenever we call something as innovation, we actually think extremely blockbuster. Need not be. It's a quite commonsensical thing, just looking at the same thing in a different way, but that had profound value.
Yeah, this was a great instance, sir, and I would like to mention that we were working on a project for a MSME project. So actually, they have started using SAP for their managing the processes, like the raw material supply, the activity-based costing, forecasting, budgeting. For all of these processes, they have started recently using SAP, and that was also very nice to hear it from you as well, like the business acumen of it. And I think that every product gets get elevated by the level of usage and how customers bring to it. And products like SAP have changed the way the enterprises are functioning, and your products also serve a huge variety of industries, as you mentioned now. And how do you ensure that the product fits such diverse business needs without losing the main focus?
Okay, so I think a very short answer would be basically our strategy, right? So what we have, or what we call as fundamentally SAP's North Star strategy, but to kind of break it down, um, you can you can think of it as a multi-layered strategy, right? At a base layer, we have the core competencies of ERP, um, which is your manufacturing, your supply chain, um, your, I think, to some extent, the HCM aspects of it and things like that. So they all sit at the base layer. Um, Using digital manufacturing, which is also the cloud-based manufacturing, using this sort of a base layer, on top is where the industry value is built, right? So you need to have a base, and the industry value, certain point of time, is a culmination of multiple of these base LOB solutions, meaning it's a much more end-to-end. Additionally, it could also bring in your compliance, regulatory, and all of these aspects pertaining to an industry. Like I think we also heard earlier in the panel, healthcare has FDA, likewise automotive has a certain standards of what you kind of go ahead and deliver or the kind of parts you make. Similarly, you have, I don't know, sustainability and so on and so forth, right? So on one side, as SAP, there is a extremely huge say stance of what we do with regards to ERP, which is also now moving more towards the cloud, the public cloud, private cloud offerings. But the industry things sit on top of that, create this end-to-end value with the industry flavor. So that is firstly the industry layer which sits on top. And how do we manage to do this? I think there are various perspectives. One thing is for the very fact that SAP has spent so much time with so many of these customers. They have understood SAP is not just a technology provider to most of these customers. SAP are collaborators, right? So they work with these big companies. For example, if I take automotive, we work with some of the bigger car manufacturers. So when the broad shift actually happened from industrial combustion engine to electric engines or electric cars per se, so SAP were right beside the automotive giants and telling them, don't worry, we will try our best to kind of support you, right? So it's the, on one side, what we already know of the industry, having worked with these customers for more than 50 years now. Second, continuing that collaboration. So we always have certain amazing collaborative customers, which helps both ways. One, they kind of take us along with their journey. Second, we also kind of seek their help in terms of bringing up newer innovations, value add as some sort of a lighthouse customers. So it becomes on two ways. Of course, we participate in a lot of these industry events. We understand the regulations. Our roadmaps do not get, or do not move forward unless and until it is much more well grounded for an industry, considering not just the innovations of AI or analytics, but also more fundamentally the regulations and compliance, because that's our unique value proposition as well. When you do a research of SAP generally, or even whatever we get from the McKinsey's, so we are placed in a way where we are not just a subject matter expert, but we also take care of the compliance and the regulatory aspect. So when you put them all together in a box, it kind of, we are one of the most willful partners for the customers in taking a path. With some of the customers, we go along with them. With most of the other customers, because we've already set the precedents, they come along with us. So it's kind of that sort of a story from an industry value proposition.
Yeah, that's an amazing take, sir. And I believe that products from SAP are immensely impactful to the business global and especially for their core functions that they're doing.
Yes.
And they can also be very easily integrated in the revolution of the technology. And that's what I wanted to understand, sir. While developing new products or features, what's your first move? Like, how do you start with? First of all, do you talk to users, or you brainstorm with your team, or you work on the data part?
There are two parts to your question, or at least I would like to address in two parts, right? So you said there is a lot of integration capabilities for SAP solutions. For me, that's one part. The other part, what you're asking, is more fundamentally on the product discovery, right? So let's start with the product discovery, and then I will add the integration piece. So from a product discovery point of view, again, really very generically looking at it, right? We bring in topics from two main lenses. Now these can have many variations, many different directions, but one is what is being asked for. Second, what we also want to do as a part of our North Star strategy, where we want to go, not just today, but maybe 5 to 10 years down the line, right? So for this, we kind of go ahead and do the discovery. We collaborate with the right set of customers that we think also are at a space where they can innovate along with us, right? They can also come along with us on the journey. They can be a lighthouse customer, because finally we also want to make sure that it has value for them, right? So in this discovery process, we of course try to look at it from the current requirement, the competitor, whatever is the value that they are kind of driving, the pain point when solved, is it also something which is generic, right? So I obviously cannot go and solve a pain point with a lot of investment to just specific one customer. I would rather try to want to keep it a little bit more generic. What we have additionally also kind of take of very high importance is really understanding that pain point to the next level with the end users, right? So we obviously have discussions with the customers and so on and so forth, but we also kind of say, hey, can we really see what is a day in the life, where are they struggling, right? And we try to do this not only once, we also try to do this, let's say, post a sort of a fix that we provide. So it's certainly not a one size fits all discovery, but when you look at discovery, you look at pain points, you look at what you want to address with the customer, speak to the end users, multiple customer sets of the end users, because you don't want to kind of look into it, and you also find out what are the white spaces that we as SAP may not deliver, right? So there could be certain niches. We might say, hey, that's a very good space, but I won't get into it, because in SAP we also pride ourselves for what we call as platform and ecosystem. And that gets me naturally to your other question in terms of how well the integration happens. So when we looked at what we are doing, especially our cloudifying SAP, moving more from your erstwhile ECC or ERP, which was more at the customer front. So one of the primary directions that we took was we also wanted to build platforms that can not only be used by us to deliver content to the customers, that can be used by partners, that can be used by customers themselves to build content for them. And this platform was made in a way that it is highly integratable. It works with, of course, there are these generic protocols and things like that, but the larger idea was it has very less time for anybody to get on board and start to deliver value. And that is where, even when I'm kind of doing a road mapping, I always am cognizant of the fact that what are SAP's core versus the non-core, because the non-core can always be addressed by partners or anybody working with regards to the platform. So the discovery phase itself, we even try to kind of find all of this, put up a roadmap. We never proceed without validating and ratifying the roadmap, and then we get on. We also have an incredibly strenuous sort of a review before even a new product starts, right? It's not just that, I find some fancy customer, he wants something and we can do. It is also not something that works. There are very good guardrails that have been set in, which needs to be followed. There is a lot of information of the customer reach, revenue, everything that me as a PM we need to put in there is a round table where we have to go and explain all of this before we get in. But in a nutshell, that's the discovery piece. What I also mentioned was the integration piece with the platform play that we have in mind. Just to kind of broke it up, hopefully you got that.
Yeah, totally aligning with the approach, sir. And during the product life cycle of the ERP, so it brings a lot of process change in the company when it's happening, and it's sometimes very difficult for someone to accept the modern tool, and it's also very difficult to accept that we're breaking out from the incumbent ritual that we're initially following. And some companies might have some fears also and some myths attached while using the ERP. So what are the common myths that you have encountered, and how did you help the businesses overcome that?
So your question is more with regards to whenever I'm giving something of a new solution, the push back from the customers, right? So I think it's highly expected. Like I was also mentioning in the panel earlier, there is a lot of expectation of our ERP solutions to be stable. Why? I mean, probably the two most simplest things why it comes is of the fact that firstly, implementing a solution takes certain time. It is not always something which, we install it like an app on the mobile and we go running, because it doesn't work that way. So you install the certain amount of configuration, you have to get the users on board, right? So that is one piece which takes time. There is another very important piece, which is the training, right, for the end users of our customers. This is also something that takes quite a bit of time, right? And when you put both together, depending on where the customer is today, not always you will actually have the concurrence of any sort of a change, right? So it won't be outrightly accepted that we now say, I'll give you an example. So we had certain traditional transactional UI, which was earlier, when we kind of changed that UI into something more modern, right? For all practical purposes, it was not something which was too much of a change. But for anybody who is so used to that older way, the newer way, however great, clean, easy, it doesn't help me, because I am now used to my old screen. Blindly I could do whatever I used to do, right, without even kind of looking there, because I've been doing it year on year. Now that particular transition was difficult. So it's certainly not always accepted. So there is this customer resilience that comes into picture. So what we always try to do, especially from an industry flavor point of view, is certainly empathize with the customer. We don't always push the customer, even if we deliver newer innovations. These sort of newer innovations are always behind sort of a switch, right? You can, at your own sweet time, when you get certain free sort of a time period within your organization, you can do the training and the implementation and so on and so forth. We also try to deliver now, since everything is SaaSified, cloudified, right? So the impact on the implementation, we try to keep it minimal. But yeah, if it is a complete kind of a drastical change, that is something that we have to plan, that we announce upfront to the customers, right? So we say, as an example, if we have to make a fundamental architectural change, because 5 years down the line, we believe that will have much more of a larger impact on cloud solutions. So we announce that to the customers. Majority of them also do understand. Some of them even request. We don't just tell the customers we do change, we even support them all along. If I'm bringing something new to you, I even help you with how you can migrate from your old to the new, right? It is on me to kind of take you along the path, not just say, oh, don't worry, everything will be okay, but really helping at a business level, kind of make the transition as seamless, human error free as possible, right? So we as a company, I think majorly this is also anyway a character of most of the companies, we take that fully, We kind of work with some of the customers who are willing to do it. Some of them have the innovation edge. Some of them have a need because they themselves kind of come to us. We use some very good. We also over a period of time have built some good networks, right? So we go to these networks and say, hey, do you think it's going to be a value add? You don't have to put it your entire company, maybe in one of your plant, right? Something on those lines, and they become our lighthouse, and we kind of work with them. But it is all done in a full-blown partnership way. It is never that I am selling you this, take it or leave it sort of a thing, because we as SAP, we've actually built those connects, and I think that's what keeps us going. And again, I will stress on the fact of our platform where we even open it up. So majority of the time, not always SAP can go and support the customers. We open it up in such a way. There's a partner play, there's a consultant play, and they can help them speed up. They already have certain resources, and you don't have to train, say, 500 people in the plant, but you just end up training 5 from an SAP, and then they are the ones who become the force multipliers and kind of go ahead. So there are multiple strategies which you have to employ depending on what is the change, how big is the change, how drastic it is. But yeah, on a case-to-case basis, we do this, and so far it's been going good.
Yeah, really insightful, sir. And I believe that with tech adaptation, changes will really be very quick. And we often hear about the term digital transformation.
Yes.
And in your view, what does that really mean? And how does SAP support businesses in their transformation journey?
See, digital transformation fundamentally is kind of from an SAP context. If you're already an SAP customer, it is more moving into more of a cloud way, kind of pivoting on what you have as a business process, taking your business process to the next level, having much more of that system of record involvement, like I already mentioned, right? So this is the digital transformation. Not always it is something that is also accepted. Again, going back to the previous point that we spoke, right? So there is customers who already taken our solutions, built a lot of their own custom solutions on top that I don't want to move and stuff like that. So what SAP did already many years ago was we said back, I think we started our cloudification around 2014, I think was the first discussion. 2015 is where I think the initial teams were kind of set up in order to cloudify. But back then it was announced that after the next 10 years, there would only be innovations that go into the cloud, right? So on one side, SAP as a company, we realized this is the way of how things work. And we can't keep kind of deploying, because it also becomes difficult for us as a company to have agility in bringing the value to the customers. Also, we realized that if you have to kind of go to a broader market, you also should be much more quicker, and that was something that the cloud allowed. And with the various different tools, with the various different hyperscalers that also came into picture, this was the direction, this was the North Star. We pivoted and we said, this is where we are going. You are with us or not, because we have to do this. We are not just doing it for us, we are also doing it because that is the future of business even for you, right? So this is in principle, the transformation for majority of the customers. For us, it was a complete transformation in terms of how we delivered what we delivered. Even the thinking in terms of I would not say just bulky, but really broad process, how it can be broken down, how can we look at various segments of customers, because initially always we used to target the extremely large ones. How can we also look at small and medium and so on and so forth. So this is in a nutshell digital transformation, right? How we support the customers, again, there are multitudes of ways here. On one side, we help them in the entire migration process. We help them plan out 3 to 5 years down the line, how such an implementation can be. We support them with the right set of people who can help them, who are industry experts to do this. We even kind of go to we kind of say you can break this entire implementation, not take it on a whole. We can do one small sort of a subsidy and then move on. That's we did something similar for a very big automotive organization. So we just enabled 3 different locations, Dubai, Spain, and I don't remember one more. None in US, somewhere in Europe itself. And once they started to work there, they said, okay, now I want to open up for 3 more areas. Now can you also bring my US dealership into the picture? So that's sort of a slow scale, but a positive forward movement. This is also something that we support with our customers on a case-to-case basis or on an ongoing basis. Again, with regards to the architectural or technological issues, I think we have all the right set of people where we support them end to end. And there is a very, very beautiful ecosystem as well, which the customers can tap into. So there is not one, there's n number of ways how this can be done. And we are always with the customer. We don't leave even one customer who has kind of, been on the journey with us, especially when we are kind of taking them on the transformational journey.
Yeah, very interesting approach to understand digital transformation and how it's supporting the customers, sir. I'm sure there is a lot of critical learning that we can take from here today, and which we can also follow in our future work. So continuing on the leadership aspect,
Sure.
Can you recall a tough decision you had to make or a trade-off on what to build or what to delay?
I think rather than a trade-off, I think there was one particular solution that I was part of, which we had to realize that we had to shut it down. There were 2 perspectives of why we had to do that. One perspective is certainly the growth aspect of the solution was not as expected, growing how much ever tangentially or so on and so forth, right? And other is also the fact that we wanted to completely technologically revamp and relook at that in a whole different way. And we realized the more we wait for us to do this, the more difficult it is, right? So it is not just a trade-off, it is almost sunsetting a particular product in itself. Thankfully, that product did not have too many customers, but it was still a very tough decision. Why? Because once a product is already on the sales list, there is a standard set of processes that is required to be followed. Each step, there is also a maintenance period for which you have to keep the lights on with regards to the particular product. So all of these had to be taken care. There was still a small team working. Keeping them motivated to work was not something which was easy. But at the same time, even when you had few other customers who had already spoken to regarding the same, we had to tell them there is something new coming. You have to kind of hold on and things like that. Certainly. At the time of the decision, it was quite hard because there was already quite a good amount of effort that had gone in with the team, and it's always quite human for us to think something that you started, it's quite tough and how can this happen? But we eventually realized it is for the good. It is broadly taking us to much better direction as we move ahead, and it was done. That is the, I don't know what you call it. It's not a success story, but that was in reality a very good learning, because it's always good we hear about these things, but when you're actually in that moment trying to kind of stop a product, firstly there's a lot of traction. It's not as simple as saying we stop a product, but secondly it also, you need some time to recover from it as a PM.
So like whenever challenging situation, as you mentioned, comes up, so how do you actually try to bring everyone together? Like, is it more a outcome oriented process or a process oriented approach?
Okay. So it's more or less you're saying about the leadership style, right? If I'm not wrong, what you're trying to ask. So, in all honesty, I believe in what is generally known as radical candor, which is fundamentally be transparent, right? There is no sugarcoating any such situations. It is what it is, and the more earlier we all accept, and it has to be accept and told from the management, and it's also top down, right? I even ensure that some of my bosses have a word with the people, be open about it. I think that is at least the foundation for me in terms of transparency. How we go about as next steps, a couple of things comes into mind. So we reiterate why a certain decision was taken. The overall purpose of it is what we try to kind of keep bringing. There is nothing called as over communication at the time of such drastic changes. So it's good even if we can over communicate, even if it can be the entire hierarchy, right? So we try and manage to do that. Sit with the team, because now they are also trying to judge whether their next steps is in the right direction, right? So sit with the team, not just share the purpose, but work with them on the mission and the next steps, right? I mean, really kind of, what could be those one or two things, probably even get to a level of metrics and things like that. That is something that I do. What I additionally also do is, depending on where we are, it could also be where you relook at your entire work assignment in itself, right? I think that is also required. I can't just say, let's say there is a team of 20, 10 people have been asked to move. If that's the situation, I can't expect the 10 remaining to take over the entire job, right? So sitting with them, reprioritizing, looking at the work, what is being done, I think that is something that we do. Sometimes, depending on the need, I even kind of work with people individually to kind of on a personal level try and coach them, because not everybody take change in the right way. Not everybody are motivated in a larger sense to even continue. Kind of do that personally as well. I seek, even with my own, at that particular point of time, even you have to be kind of steady. So I have a few of my amazing mentors who I kind of also go to kind of ground myself before I do all of this, right? But at least some of these practices I believe has at least helped me and my team. Hopefully we'll see how it dynamically changes.
Yeah, so true, sir. Your leadership, and I think the great team that you have is the North Star behind all the great products that we are seeing. And SAP is a market leader for decades now, and it's always going to come up with new solutions for evolving industries. And from your experience, what are the key factors that makes the SAP rollout or the implementation successful? And what are some of the pitfalls that the company should be watching out for?
Company in terms of SAP?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean the companies which are coming up new in the competition.
As competition,
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it down. The first piece was what was the kind of implementation?
Yeah. On what factors that the successful implementation depends on.
Okay. So I fundamentally believe any particular product, some of the factors is, of course, governed by the usage, governed by the revenue, governed by how much more you can stretch the roadmap, right? So you keep kind of delivering value over time and again, which on one side not just increases the solution, but on the other side it also brings value to probably the tertiary groups of the same persona or the industry that you're trying to address to. So these factors certainly kind of keep us going. And if it can also have opportunities, fundamentally when you look at it as a company, to first land with a particular solution and expand, I think now you're broadening your footprint. Fundamentally that is good. And with that, even if you can involve your ecosystem, because as SAP we are always trying to say that we are an ecosystem based company. I think all of these are not just success factors, it is also something that helps in the success of the customers.
Yeah, and continuing on that, sir, like how does SAP is rapidly adapting to the changing technology like AI and other technologies that is now getting integrated to the SAP products?
Yep.
So how do you ensure that we are delivering that value to the customers?
So it's a very good question. It is something which is ongoing, but for sure, I believe when you take topics such as AI, there is a lot of pressure for all of the companies to kind of inculcate AI. Within SAP, I think we have an excellent team. When you're looking at it from an AI, we did start quite early in this overall journey. I mean, even prior to the actual uh, uh, LLM era or the chat GPT era, we were already looking a lot into your predictive sort of aspects, analyticals, and so on and so forth. With the advent of these LLMs, I think we even kind of got into a little bit more in building an actual AI core, which we use, and what we also have already supporting the customers is the co-pilot capabilities, and even how quickly you can kind of address a certain amount of information and subsequently even do certain transactional aspects of it within there. So if to answer your question of is it easy? Certainly not, because at the end of the day, you are trying to balance on one side the stability of whatever you've already kind of delivered, and on the other side, you're trying to build in something new, which today is new and tomorrow would be considered by your customer as table stakes, right? And how well the system is kind of built for this is something which is evolving. We are doing a lot of things on this front. There is a lot of impetus from our board on this particular topic, mainly not just looking at it from a customer value point, also looking at it as how SAP can improve the agility, go to the market quite quickly, and so on and so forth. So a lot of things being done here, extremely positive things as well.
Yeah, interesting take, sir. So, before wrapping up, I would just take one piece of advice or maybe a myth you'd like to bust about succeeding in the product leadership.
Okay. I would say fundamentally, it's there are a lot of aspects of being a product manager, which sometimes go unnoticed. Right. So it is not just with the multiple set of stakeholders that a PM works. It is not just the fact that the PM has to understand the technicality, he has to understand the management side, stakeholder side, commercialization side, sales side, and so on and so forth. Eh, the it's also for the very fact that PMs need to even keep learning whatever is out there, whatever is new, adapting towards whatever is the changes with regards to the industry that they're working, or the regulations, or the compliance. So it's a full blown role. And for the lack of something I can't recollect now, but it is like a CEO, right? And it's quite rosy. It's a brilliant role. Nothing against it, but just that I have seen so many people trying to take that route, thinking it's just another role that probably, similar to me being, I don't know, an architect, or I mean, it's a little tad different. It has a lot of people involvement within the role. It has a lot of stakeholder engagement within the role, lot of customer interactions within the role, again depending on what you do, but again it is people interactions finally, right? So they consider all of that, and then honestly assess whether that is the path that you would want. There are some people who have figured out they do not, because majorly even when I kind of mentor people, they're like, I want to be people, like, why, wow, you get a lot of money. I'm like, who told you? Right? I mean, that's also a myth that a product manager earns a lot. Apparently not the case, but the fact being, it's a multi-dimensional sort of a topic where majority of the times you would be the one who would be searching for answers, and everybody will come to you with questions, right? And you do not have the answers, but you will go and search, and you need to have that patience. You need to have that, sponginess about it. I think that's what makes the role also beautiful. Some people do say that PM is an art, but yeah, that is also one thing that you can look at. If you're really good at it, people will like it. But that's what at least I would say. Not a myth, but probably a little bit more clarity into what the role entails.
Yeah, wonderful, sir. And so this has been truly insightful and inspiring. And thank you so much for taking your time to share your experiences and your wisdoms with us. And this has been a true great learning for all of us as well. And I'm sure our audience is going to find a great value in learning directly from a great product leader. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Jagriti.
Thank you.
XLRI.